Hello and welcome to KBC's vlog series as we continue with reading between the lines. And today we're looking at Genesis 17, 1 to 21. And the title is Circumcision. So the author is talking about circumcision today and how it was a sign of covenant and how that plays out in the Bible. So I'll read what he has to say for us. So the other day we thought about the covenant, God's oath that he will be our God and we will be his people. God made his promises by cutting a covenant. When Hebrew speakers talked about the covenant, they would never say to make a covenant. No, they would cut a covenant. In Genesis 15, we saw why. The covenant vows are pronounced in the midst of cutting animals. The promises were blood-earnest commitments. So they spoke of how the Lord himself would be cut in order to underwrite his covenant of love. So in Genesis 17, we read about Abraham being given a sign of the covenant. Covenants always have signs attached to them, tangible tokens of God's promise which believers can look to. So the covenant that Noah had, the sign of a rainbow attached. The covenant with Abraham had a different sign, circumcision. Now the word for circumcision is the word cutting off. So when we read Genesis 17, 1 to 27, and I encourage you to do that, to hear all the cutting language that is used in association with circumcision. So in Genesis 17, the covenant is cut. The sign of the covenant, circumcision, is a cutting off. And if you didn't own this sign of cutting, you yourself will be cut off. So cutting is one major theme in Genesis 17. But there is another, seed. In fact, seed occurs 17 times in Genesis 17. So Abraham is reminded again and again that the promises of God are for his seed. Let's put these two themes together. If the promises of Abraham are to Abraham's seed, doesn't it seem a little dangerous to be cutting off the flesh down there? So aren't the Israelites doing something perilously dangerous down there? Indeed they are. And that's the point. That's the sign of the covenant, will be a bloody pre-enactment of the cutting off the seed, Jesus Christ, so engraved in their bodies. So Abrahamites were to wear a symbol of the cross, the true cutting off. As members of these Jewish households grew up, they are urged again and again in the Old Testament to have a circumcision of heart. See Deuteronomy 10:16, 36 and Jeremiah 4:4. That is, they are meant to own personally and inwardly the sign that was given to them corporately and outwardly. But the sign itself is a sign of righteousness by faith, Romans 4:11. Those who had the sign of the covenant cut into their flesh were meant to look beyond it to the one cut off for them, the offspring, the Messiah. The outward sign came first, and the Israelites were to grow up under that sign and to grow up into its reality. Today, we do not put blood signs of the covenant onto our bodies. That would be inappropriate now that the seed, Jesus, has been cut off. Instead, in the new covenant, we have a water sign baptism. We read this in Colossians 2:11 and 12. Yet both signs are gracious gifts from God's seal of his covenant, a covenantal love. And the people of God are meant to grow up under these signs and into the realities to which they point. Consider the words from a French Reformed Baptist service. They capture beautifully what is meant to grow up under the sign of the covenant. May these promises surround you today. Little children, For you, Christ came into the world, laboured and suffered. For you, he went through the agony of Gethsemane and the darkness of Calvary. For you, he cried, "It is finished." For you, he died, and for you, he triumphed over death. Yes, for you, little children. And so the declaration holds true. We love God because he loved us first. So I hope that's blessed you, everyone. I like how the author goes to say that, the signs are to point towards Christ, and, we're to look beyond the signs, and maybe we don't understand those signs or symbols because they might have meant something slightly different at the time, or we just don't understand things sometimes, and it's that we can move on from maybe the sign and look to what it's meant to be pointing us towards. I hope that's blessed you, everyone. Have a great day. Goodbye.